Now, after Broca, published his, work concerning those with, major language production deficits, right, that seemed to be linked to this region that became known as Broca's area in the left, frontal lobe, actually. There was an individual, another neurologist in Germany, who saw many patients who had problems not with language production so much, but with language comprehension. So their production actually was quite what we say fluent. They could easily generate all sorts of speech, and it sounded grammatically correct. Actually, it sounded fine. However, it was clearly, if you spoke that language, it was nonsensical. I mean, it would be weird juxtapositions of words and terms. I mean, it was grammatically correct, but they were talking nonsense. It was very hard to understand what it is that they were trying to explain. And they also tended not to understand, very much about, what others were saying to them too. So they had significant problems with comprehension as opposed to the production of language. They were fluent. They could produce, but they had real difficulties with comprehending speech or sign or any other form of expression. So this was Karl Wernicke in Germany. And again, language production was preserved, but language comprehension was significantly compromised. So he also examined the brains of his patients, the patients that he was sent after post-mortem, and he found that there was damage to the posterior regions, the back regions of the left hemisphere, also left hemisphere, but it was in the temporal lobe. The gyrus, or surface area of cortex, that was the most superior, the one that was highest up on the temporal lobe, but it was the sort of posterior portion of this region. So it's illustrated, over here in this image. This became known as Wernicke's area. And it turns out that Wernicke's area is actually linked to Broca's area by a kind of a cable of axons. They're bidirectional. A lot of stuff going sort of forward, though, that we'll talk about in a minute. That's called the arcuate fasciculus. So fasciculus is a big cable with lots and lots of wires in it. In this case, lots and lots of axons. And it turns out that some of these posterior regions we're going to see, including Wernicke's area that was identified by Karl Wernicke, is linked up with Broca's and some of these other areas that are pretty critically involved with production in the more frontal lobe region of the brain.